Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So, in regard to the conversation we were having before the break, and we're going to get some questions that Johnny is looking at in the chat in a second, but Newsweek is reporting that Poroshenko, who replaced Yanukovych and was before Zelensky, he was the transition from the sock puppet government of Yanukovych, which was run effectively from Moscow, to an independent Ukrainian government that we have under Zelensky. Poroshenko was the guy who transitioned through that period. He was, the inversion of Yeltsin, one would think, from Gorbachev to Putin. If you reverse that, that's what Poroshenko is. And Poroshenko is reportedly saying that the West should not be deterred by Putin's threats of nuclear war. He's Petro Poroshenko, who preceded Vladimir Zelensky as president of Ukraine from 2014 to 2019, spoke on the issue during an interview with Current Time published Saturday. Entity insisted that Putin can only be dealt with by using force. Putin only understands force, and he will go as far as the world allows him. We can't create a precedent for the world, and even more so in Europe, where one state can forcibly change borders. On the subject of nuclear weapons, Poroshenko called Putin's various statements and speeches about the potential for nuclear war empty threats and urged nations of the world not to be intimidated by them as they continue to help Ukraine. Putin, he said, fears the consequences of using nuclear weapons. He will be hindered by a fear if he thinks of using weapons of mass destruction because Putin knows he will be destroyed by retaliatory strikes. He also knows, I think, that beyond the retaliatory strikes, it goes to that, what you were saying, Philip, that this will isolate Russia in a permanent sense going forward. You don't get to do that. Acting on a country defends itself. You've been seizing parts of their country for years, and they decide to finally push you out, and your excuse is, well, we're going to nuke you. It's an absurdity to assume they ever achieve normalcy with Europe or any other trade partner, even China, again, because China's not going to want that, especially if they
think about what's going to be.
Yeah, go ahead.
The day after he uses even a low-yield nuclear weapon in Ukraine, especially in an urban center, what is going to be on the front? What is going to lead every news broadcast? What's been on the front page of every newspaper? Thousands and thousands of dead bodies.
Yes,
killed in horrific ways.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially mine being amongst them. So let's hope that doesn't happen.
Right.
But but it's going to be, and then what? 10 years down the road, he's going to be accepted back into the family of nations? No way.
Yes.
No way.
And
so
I
think
it's incredibly telling that. Yeah.
Poroshenko's 100% right, and you're right. Poroshenko was kind of like an interim guy. He was kind of a placeholder and an apparatchik. He was a safe hand. But I'll tell you one thing that Petro Poroshenko did that this country is going to be eternally grateful for, and it's the same thing that George Washington did for our country. He accepted the loss of a free and fair election, and he walked away.
Right.
And so, and that set the precedent for an actual functioning democracy in Ukraine. There has been a peaceful peaceful transfer of power here.
Mm-hmm.
2, maybe 3 times if you include the prior government back during the Yellow Revolution. So that has happened at least twice, potentially 3 times in Ukraine. How many times has that happened in Russia's entire history? Never. So there's all these guys that run around saying that the Ukraine and Russia are the same thing. They have no idea what they're talking about.
Right. And I do think that cost is being factored into the thought, and there is also a very strong chance, and this is my own feeling about this, that Putin himself would see the use of a tactical nuke as a way of to supposedly win this, which it wouldn't, as a sign of weakness. That your conventional weapons and your conventional military was not enough to beat this little upstart country that was kicking your keister, and you had to fall back to a tactical nuclear warhead to do this from their own. And again, this is kind of going to the sleazy hedonist idea of the the oligarchs in Russia, that they that you can count on them to be greedy and protect their nut from, being stolen from them by too much overreach by Putin to some degree. There's also this kind of machismo aspect of the culture that it would be a tremendous sign of weakness if they had to fall back to using a tactical nuke to save Crimea, like, of all things. And the Russian people who are against this, who have been
conventional forces couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it. Right.
Yeah.
That's
there's two other things about using the nuke here that I want to point out quickly. One is that unlike chemical weapons usage, which the Russians, so the Russians have used chemical weapons. I'm not even gonna dance around it. The Russians used nuclear weapons in Syria. Chemical weapons in Syria. No question about it, to my mind. But they could do that and blame it on somebody else. They use a nuke. There's no way they can blame it as a self-inflicted wound by the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians gave up their weapons.
That's right.
And that's my second point, that if we kowtow to Russia because they have nukes, that will send a message to every tin pot dictator around the world that you don't give up your nukes, because Ukraine had nuclear weapons. The fall of the Soviet Union, they had nuclear weapons inside the Ukrainian Socialist People's Republic, right? That part of the Soviet Union that was Ukraine. We came to an agreement with them, and they willingly gave up their nuclear stockpile.
Right.
Had they not done that, there is no way that Russia would be conducting their current nukes. Don't ever give them up. And two, if you don't got nukes, get them, because otherwise some guy who does have nukes is going to come around and push you over, and it'll cascade into nuclear proliferation.
Agreed. Also, I would argue there's a further reach on this where right.
Poroshenko's right. We need to stand up to him.
Yes. There's also another issue with Russia using the concept of MAD, mutual assured destruction, as an envelope, like, well, we got nukes, so you can't touch our conventional warfare no matter where we carry it out. We can attack Chechnya, we can attack Georgia, we can do what we did in Syria, we can take over your bases after you leave, or even participate with the Assad regime and drive, U.S. soldiers out of their own bases. And then we can attack Ukraine because you're afraid to do anything because we've always got nukes in our back pocket, which is not what the purpose of mutual assured destruction. Mutual assured destruction was supposed to be a stop against all war of any major scale like this. It was supposed to be like, okay, well, we're all in the same kind of boat. But when you know full well that the United States post Japan, the lesson learned was we're never going to do that again. We have no interest in doing it. The American people don't have an appetite for it. And our rulers know that, our elected leaders know that they're not going to, they would never live it down. The Russians don't have that holding them back in theory or whatever. The only thing they have is the economic impact and the idea and their own kind of internal, self-identifying as the strong bully on the block. If you have to go for the gun in a fist fight, arguably, that's what shows you as weak in that circumstance, and that's the only thing holding them back. But they use the idea that they have nukes to allow them to just attack physically with conventional warfare anywhere they want, and that's also something that will continue if we allow this to work. What's going to stop them from going into Lithuania, Latvia, ultimately, obviously, Finland and those kind of things? They just decide after a while, well, it's nukes, and NATO's not going to use nukes against us, and if we can, build up enough conventional stuff and they're close enough, we can start wrecking them. Just destroy them, because we have that buffer. We want the land buffer. Do we have any questions, Johnny Million? Because I want to get one in before we get to this primary break.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Cool. Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go for it. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yep.
I met here in Eastern Washington are Christian evangelical. I'm wondering what the overall belief system or majority is in Ukraine.
What's the religious system that's most predominant in Ukraine?
One more time, Johnny.
What's the biggest like religious denomination in Ukraine?
What's the religious system that's most predominant? Well, that's a really who asked that?
It's Emmett. Is
Well,
it?
okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, thank you for the question. It's a
David
wonderful
Fisher.
question.
Okay.
It gives me the opportunity. Gives me the opportunity to talk about something that's actually really important, because they're primarily split. Well, okay, so there's two primary Christian groups within Ukraine, and it is there is a large contingent of Catholics and a very kind of odd Greek Orthodox church in the west of the country, out where I was in Lviv. And I say Greek Orthodox is kind of weird because they have Orthodox rites, but they fall under the Vatican. They're part of the Vatican system. If I've got that 100% right, I might be fudging around that a little bit because it's very complicated. But as far as here in the rest of the country, most of the people are Orthodox. But this is why I'm so glad you asked that question, because it's really interesting. Because it used to fall under the Moscow Patriarchy. So this was part of the Russian Orthodox Church, which fell under the control of Patriarch Kirill in Moscow. Mm-hmm. And about 2 years ago, once the war started, 2014, the Ukrainians said, we don't want to be under a belligerent power, because Kirill is very close to Putin. Putin gets a lot of his power from the Russian Orthodox Church, and Patriarch Kirill, the head of the church in particular. And the Ukrainians said, no, the heck with that. We don't want to have anything to do with that. And so we are going to break away. And they petitioned. They did it properly, and they've created their own Ukrainian Orthodox Church. So they have their own patriarchy here in Kiev, and that made the Russians furious. Even today, during this war, the Russian Patriarch Kirill, again, has been going around blessing soldiers and blessing, throwing holy water on jets and stuff like that, saying that their fight is a holy fight because of this breakaway Ukrainian Orthodoxy, which, of course, is not legitimate in his eyes. And he made it into a holy war. Now, the Patriarch here, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, is not doing anything like that. He is going out and he is saying, bless our soldiers, and we stand with our soldiers. But he's not like doing this kind of invocation of God's war sort of thing.
Right.
I'm splitting hairs a little bit about that, but he's not doing what Kirill is doing. Kirill is doing stuff that's just straight up like, go there and fight for Russian Orthodoxy because that's God's will. Whereas the Ukrainian Patriarch is like, you are holy, and you're fighting a good fight, and we stand with you. But he's not like invoking God as your holy warriors fighting against Russia.
There's a huge difference, and
I think that's a distinction that's really important.
There's a distinction that's different in how, say, the United States views religion towards our soldiers and the like, and the way Russia does it as well. It's kind of similar in that there's one thing to bless somebody so that they survive and that they, that they have kind of like that they're doing a righteous thing, versus help us defeat the infidels kind of language, which is, closer to what Russia's Orthodox Church is doing, is that these people,
and do not get me wrong. Yeah, do not get me wrong. Yeah, don't get me wrong. The Ukrainians are deeply religious people. They will take blessings as they go into battle to kind of have the protection of God sort of thing. If you are in Ukraine, you will notice people when they walk by a church, they will cross themselves, and that's a very common thing. This country is deeply, deeply religious. I got so angry at Michael Flynn this week when he put out that BS about how this country is ungodly. I got furious because it's like, you clearly have never been here, you traitorous.
Yeah, you're right.
Because these people are so deeply, deeply religious, and it's ingrained in their entire society. So, it's just, Flynn makes me angry. But
Yeah,
these
yeah.
are, they're very, very religious here. But they don't do it in the way the Russians are doing it. They do it as kind of like, we bless ourselves because we want God to protect us.
Right, right, and that's far more common worldwide as far as religious belief about military service or being a police officer or those kind of things. When you talk about people who go into dangerous situations and stuff, like kind of the blessing of protection versus help us murder those that oppose us, and who's the religious leader? We got to take a break, but who's the? We'll talk about this on the other side of it. Who's the bishop that's Putin's religious advisor and his stuff? I'm curious about that guy because he has a lot of play in the current decisions being made militarily in Russia.
Well, that's Kirill.
Yeah, Kirill, right. And the question is that as Putin gets sick, does that guy have more control over the circumstance, more of a voice, more of a say? So we'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I am happy, you are happy, let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky, let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo! I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning, I'll be right by your side.
Yay! It kind of, real quick before we get into,
that woman gives me joy every week.
As you do. There is a story that I want to add because we normally have a happy ending for real. And it's sort of subtle. It kind of goes along with the nuclear diamond batteries I've been talking about and those kind of things. There was a story that was in the Detroit Free Press this week, and I'm trying to find the whole size article of it. But it's the name of it is How Ford Aims to Change.
Okay, well, you do that. I've got a happy ending too.
Great. Ford aims to change your truck electric bill and generator, and they're talking about how the Ford F-150. You could plug into your house and run the electricity in your house for 3 days off the thing if you're in an emergency at most normal size houses. And that increasingly is becoming something that even the right leaning among us can rally around as a point of freedom and homesteading and being off grid and all these things that they clamor for is now making the idea of an electric vehicle sexy for that particular crowd. It's also incredibly helpful. And even just simply going camping and being able to, run effectively, your car acts as an electric generator without puking diesel smoke into the forest while you're out there. Those kind of things should appeal to kind of everybody. And getting that energy from locally sourced stuff, either be it nuclear or from, the elimination of coal over time, but geothermal, solar, any of the renewables that come out, and being able to charge your truck off of that as a good old southerner driving around your big F-150, that loosens that control point and sets a standard for electric cars the world over that European cars will start to follow. And that's what ultimately severs the need for Russia and its control point that it had over Europe in the long term, even while these short-term fixes are all working very, very well. And so, hooray for Ford doing this. It's a great step forward. And the fact that they're taking the F-150 and a sign of macho truck life and making that the vanguard of their electric fleet is a beautiful thing. And what was your happy ending, Philip? And then we'll get one more question at least before the end of the show.
My happy ending is this. Today, I saw a video that was put out by, I believe it was actually even the government in Kiev here. There's a town in kind of central southern Ukraine and Russia. Right now, it's my understanding Russia is predominantly in control of it, but it's where the water source the canal comes from that goes to Crimea. It's essential for Russia to control it. And they've been trying to get it back, and they've been fighting over it for quite some time. But today it is apparently in Russian hands. However, at the train station today, some brave Ukrainian took a Ukrainian flag and rose it over the Kherson train station in defiance of Russia. That takes guts.
Yeah, it does.
Bless those people. You can try and take the territory, Vlad. You can try and take this territory, Russia, but you're never going to take their spirit. They're going to keep doing stuff like that. And the only way to do it is first, to use tactics that the world will not accept. The Ukrainian will only make the Ukrainians fight stronger, and bless their hearts. I mean, to see that flag rising over an occupied town, the guts that took. You can't beat them. You're never going to beat them. Go home.
And by the way, there are no Russians in Crimea or the Donbass region who would do the exact same thing in the face of Ukrainian troops for that land. It's
Absolutely not
the same thing. Even though it's claimed territory by Russia, they do not have as much, home attachment to even those areas, even over the last, 8 years. So, so let's get.
Well,
we got
it's
5 minutes left.
like in my blog that I had with the history professor out in Lviv. Ukrainians are fighting for a bright, positive future. They're fighting for something coming. There's an incentive. They want a brighter future. Russia is fighting to kind of harken back to let's make Russia great again. When was that? I don't know.
Right.
It's a cynical thing. Whereas the Ukrainians are like, yes, we're going to have a country and it's going to be a golden era and we have so much ahead of us and a bright future.
Right.
Compare the two. What are you going to fight for?
You can't. If anything, what's going to grow is Russians' desire to be more like Ukraine in how their government functions, and that's what scares Putin and his crowd more than anything else. Johnny, let's get at least one question, and if not two, if we can.
Yeah, I've got a couple of nice ones, so maybe you can do a 1-2 here. What's the weather like there, and how is the wheelchair access? Because people want to visit.
Wheelchair access is really quite good, frankly. Even so this gets really, really cold in the winter, and there's a lot of snow. So what they do, like in Moscow and a lot of former Soviet Union cities, is they build their malls and stuff underground. They're called perehods, and there's a perehod
like Toronto
to go through. Yeah, and even they actually they're so smart here. They've got railings, the little so you can put the wheels of the wheelchair and go down into the underground shopping mall. So absolutely, this place is friendly for wheelchairs. Come on over.
Yeah.
Next.
Well, I'll squeeze in one more then. Ed's 3D Tech wanted to ask which way the wind blows and its proximity to Russia in regards to nuclear fallout.
It's a good question. I mean, look, here's the thing, though. Ukraine is massive. It's huge. And so, I mean, when Chernobyl happened, for example, the only reason why that, the wind blew is because it was right near, very close to the border with Belarus. So that's why there was an international incident. If they were to strike anywhere west of the Dnieper, and again, they would probably use low yield weapons, so that would not come into play. If they hit in Donbass, the wind, absolutely, depending on the day, but generally, my feeling is that my sense of it is that the wind. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, you know what? I'm going to have to look into it and I'll get back to you. How about that?
Right. Yeah. Well, it also there's a different level of fallout from a ballistic missile with a true nuclear warhead and a tactical nuke on it. The damage you're going to see from a tactical nuke, besides maybe a couple of miles in any one direction, genuinely like 1 or 2 miles, is going to be a lot closer to the toxicity created by the constant use of depleted uranium bullets in an area where the gunfire was so prolonged over the course of 20 years that there are areas in Iraq where it's relatively toxic to be, because those bullets are all in the ground in certain hillsides and areas wherever they entrenched. And it's going to be
to go back briefly to the other question, I mean, the fallout from radiation is a real problem, because there are a lot of people here with physical disabilities, or I don't know what the terminology is nowadays, but physical disabilities because of the radiation that happened for Chernobyl. So I mean, that might also contribute to why this place is so hospitable for like wheelchairs and people who have some physical imperatives.
Right. Well, we're at the tail end of the show.
Come on over.
Exactly. Some of you might want to wait until later this year. I'm just saying. I recommend.
Not right away, but do come.
Yeah.
When this is all done and dusted, come on over. And in the meantime, check out my vlogs. I just dropped a good one about my visit, my travel from Lviv to Kiev. I thought it came out pretty well. So go take a look at it.
We're out of time, Chicago. Thank you so much. That's the end of the show. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And we'll see you guys next week on the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.